Hi there. I'm Diana Montford, the world's first transgender television journalist. Born male, but not male now. My guest is transgender activist Tanya Asapansa, I believe, Johnson. Tanya Asapansa-Johnson, who is a lifelong transgender activist, an Army veteran. In her previous life as a man, she was in the Army. She is now on the board of the Audre Lorde Project, and we're going to talk to her about her life and times and her family, and this is one trans woman's story. Ms. Tanya Asapansa-Johnson.
Hi.
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 So, who is Tanya?
Well, I'm 52 years old. I'm transgender activist. I'm an Army veteran.
Uh-huh.
And I just like fighting for trans rights, basically.
Mm-hmm. And how long have you been trans?
Basically all my life I've been trans. So I've been trans all my life.
Now, why did you enter the Army at 17 if you're trans?
Because I was fighting it, basically. I was fighting, my transition.
And you thought if you entered the Army, you would not be trans, you would be a card-carrying, heterosexual, normal person.
Yes.
And you're not normal, you're us.
Yes, and that didn't occur.
Didn't your father tell you enter the Army and you'll change?
No, he did. He said, one day you'll change.
And
so
you did?
I decided to go to the military. It was my decision. He didn't, pressure me into anything.
Mm-hmm.
But they knew I was different.
How?
From a child, they knew I was different.
Did you play with dolls? Did you
I
try
played-
on your mother's dresses, lipstick, all that?
I played with dolls. However, my mother wasn't very happy. She would attack me for playing with dolls.
What would she say?
She would say horrible things.
You goddamn faggot, let go of that Barbie doll.
Yes, yeah. My sister would always tell when I played with Barbie dolls.
He's playing with my dolls.
And she would come racing into the room, to make me into a cisgender male.
But you know that she
But I was
couldn't help
trans.
it. That was just the time, and
Yeah,
what
I was
she'd
trans.
been taught was right. She wasn't trying to hurt you. She was trying to save you,
Yeah, she was trying to save me from what? I don't know.
From this.
But,
But
I'm happier being myself.
I am too.
Happier being myself. I'd rather be trans than anything else.
Does she rather be trans, for example, than a cis woman, a genetic woman?
Would I rather be trans?
Yes.
Yes, I love being trans. I love being
do
trans.
too,
I feel special.
Yeah.
I feel
We were
very
discussing this before the show. Yes, indeed. We won't tell them what we were saying that we're not tremendously interested in transgender surgery because the guys like to suck on it, okay? But anyway, yeah. And don't you have a girlfriend who transitioned and said, I wish I hadn't, now I don't feel special?
Yes, I had a friend who transitioned. She's from San Francisco, and she was telling her friend not to
Get
SRS or sex reassignment
Yes.
surgery because you're no longer special, you're just a regular woman once you have the surgery. So
Yeah, so
keep your genitals.
keep those schlongs up, ladies. Okay. But anyway, stand tall and deliver, yes. Anyway, be the girl with something extra. Or not. If you want to go the whole route and get every kind of genital surgery there is to get, go for it. Do whatever makes you happy. But anyway, so you like being transgender?
Yes, I like being trans. I feel very special. I feel that I don't think there was any mistakes. I feel like I was born this way, and that I accept I'm accepting the way I was born.
Right.
You know, it took me a long time to accept it because I didn't know what it was. I was misdiagnosed with other
What did they
mental
say
health
you were?
diagnosis. I don't know what the diagnoses were, but I was misdiagnosed, like many trans women are in society today.
Mm-hmm.
And most trans women who are misdiagnosed suffer severe mental illnesses.
Well,
as a result.
they used to say that being transgender was a severe mental illness. And we, the trans community, say no, it is not. And you get into a very delicate area there because I believe they give government assistance to trans people for being trans, and many trans people cannot find employment because they are trans and need the money from the government, but they have to take it on the basis that being trans is their mental illness. So that's a very difficult position to be in. Basically, they have to swallow their pride and take the money to survive because being trans, it's very difficult to get paid employment in anything other than sex work or anything else, right?
Yes, and now in New York City, Medicaid and Medicare are paying for sex reassignment surgery. However, there are no doctors in New York, I was told, qualified to perform those surgeries.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of women are waiting,
So,
and men are waiting, trans men.
so basically it doesn't matter that Medicaid and Medicare will pay for transgender surgery if there are no doctors qualified to perform it. And I'm sure there are many doctors qualified to perform it. They choose not to. For whatever reason, it might be something as simple as economics. They choose not to be Medicaid doctors, you know.
Yes,
So it might not be a moral decision like, oh, I would never do that. It might just be, you know, I don't want to lose my Park Avenue patients, you know.
yes, but so I believe, you know, they just passed the law, so I believe, you know, as far as Medicaid's concerned, I believe doctors will move to New York City like they did in San Francisco and start performing the surgeries.
Would it be possible for people from other areas of the country to go to San Francisco to get free transgender surgery?
Well, you would have to live in San Francisco for at least, I think, a year or two
Oh dear.
before they would
Consider
they would allow
doing it
you-
for free. Yeah.
allow you to do the surgery over there.
Do people get hormones for free
Yes, they do.
in New York?
Yes, they do. Some
Because
do. Some
Governor
do.
Pataki did away with that law about 20 years ago. We
Yeah.
had a Republican governor named Pataki, excuse me, who decided that budget cuts needed to be made, and the first to go, of course, were the transgender folk. That's changed now.
It's changed now. Some are allowed to get it. I mean, we have immigrants. Some immigrants, trans people, are not allowed to get.
Because they're not citizens.
They're not allowed to access trans health care.
Are American citizens in New York City, New York State,
Yes.
allowed to get
They're allowed, you know.
free
they're-
hormones?
Yes, if they change their gender marker
Right.
on their ID.
Which in this state, or at least in this city, I myself recently changed my birth certificate to reflect my female gender. And it was very easy. They were very courteous. They helped me as much as anyone could help anyone. As nice and as polite and as respectful as it gets. That's in New York City. I don't know what it's like wherever you are. But, and I changed, and I'm changing, excuse me, my Social Security card and all that nonsense that takes, it's really annoying to have to go to the Social Security Bureau at 7 a.m., but it's more than worth it. So I have changed my gender marker on my birth certificate, I had my name legally changed, all those wonderful things that we can do here in New York. And I was helped by the Transgender Legal Defense Fund, which they're wonderful people.
Yes, because without your documents matching your gender, you're not able to travel outside of the U.S. and and to get a passport.
Yes.
If your documents aren't matching.
Yes, yes.
And you probably won't be able to get a job or do things in society that people take for granted.
Such as?
Such as, like I said, get a job, or become employed, education, different things. Get a student loan.
Is the law, would you know, is the law all over the country? Does it allow for people who are transgender to change the gender markers on their documents?
All over the country?
Yes.
No, not even all over New York State, probably.
So this, at the time that we are filming this, is peculiar to San Francisco and New York and a few other places.
Yes. Well, New York City is the bubble for trans people, I think 16 or 17 other counties or cities in New York State have gender protections. Gender, which is the anti-discrimination bill. They have certain protections that protect trans folks, who, in employment, education, and accommodations, which is like in restaurants.
Well, in other words, if you go to a restaurant and a member of the wait staff says, "Get out of here, you freak. I'm not serving you. Die. Get out of my house. Get out of my restaurant. Choke on this. Get the fuck out of here." Call the cops. Call the cops.
In some places...
And sue.
In some places, they can deny you service in their restaurant. They can deny you. They can go in the restroom and tell you cannot go into the ladies' room.
Is that in New York? No.
Yeah, in some places in New York because there's no protections. Some places are not protected in New York State.
Which is why we have to pass the gender bill.
For all of New York State.
For all of the U.S., for all of the world. Guaranteeing complete parity with the straight world for LGBT folk, for trans folk.
Yes.
Anyway, what would you say, now, we've both made a fairly easy adjustment to being trans. We're good at it in many ways. Many people are not. They transition and for one reason or another, it just isn't right for them. So what should they do? In other words, they transition and they either don't like the way they look or they find that living in the gender of their choice isn't what they thought it would be, or whatever. For example, a trans man who sees himself as a big, strong man who might be a 5'2" tall woman and then transitions is not going to get the male experience he wanted. A 6'5" tall man who is a woman inside and transitions might not get the 5'2" eyes of blue, ain't she sweet female experience that she would like. Is there anything that those people can do to be more comfortable, even those who are not passable as cisgender folk?
Well, you have to look in the mirror every day and just tell yourself, I love you. I mean, you have to love yourself even if no one else will. You have to boost your own self-esteem, in this world because a lot of trans people commit suicide as a result of not passing and not looking the way they feel they should look. And a lot of trans people cannot afford surgeries and things to even improve or look different, look more like their gender. So,
in other words, lucky Caitlyn Jenner, who transitioned and did it beautifully, was of course helped by the fact that she's A, rich, B, white, C, a celebrity. So it smoothed the path considerably.
Yes. It took Caitlin till the age of 65 to come out.
Right.
As trans.
And I admire her for that.
I do too.
And she has validated us all over the world. In one fell swoop, we have risen in the esteem of most people, because if a top athlete can do it, we can do it.
And it also helped my father to understand trans people more. He said it was an eye-opener for him, so I thank Caitlin for that.
Well, why was it an eye-opener for?
Because he didn't understand it, and Caitlin kind of explained it, that it's something you really can't help. You're born that way, and that kind of opened my father's eyes about me, because he didn't know why I transitioned. He didn't know what it was. He didn't know anything. He doesn't Google on a computer and things like that. So it helped my father out a lot to become more accepting and to use the proper gender pronouns when addressing me. So
now, your family is quite prominent. Your grandfather,
my mother's father,
whose name was?
Asapansa-Johnson, or Bishop Asapansa-Johnson.
Tell us very quickly about him.
He was African royalty. He was Shanti, African royalty. He went to Fourrier Bay College in Freetown, Sierra Leone. He was head of a boys' school over there, and he moved to England.
We can see photographs from Jet magazine from the late 1940s. Here is Tanya's grandfather being given an award by President Truman. Yes, that President Truman.
He's giving President Truman an award for his work on civil rights in the 40s in Harlem, in Doris Brooks Square. And because I think Truman wanted to be reelected, and he did do some work in the area of civil rights. So my grandfather presented him with this award because, they were pretty good friends.
Right.
Now,
so many people think that transgender folk come from nothing, that we're all, and that's fine. If you come from nothing, make something of yourself, or be happy with yourself. But they are startled when transgender people come from prominent families that, know how to read and stuff, I mean.
They named a street in Staten Island on Van Duzer. They co-named a street after him called Bishop Asapansa-Johnson Way. Thank you, Bloomberg, for signing it into law, Mayor Bloomberg.
Bloomberg was not bad in a lot of ways. In some ways he was terrible, but in some ways he was quite good.
In some ways he was good, and he, we were all on Channel 1 News, and the fire department was there because he was the first black fire chaplain in New York City. And he was also head of the Interdenominational Ministers Association of New York, and he was friends with many prominent people. His best friend was Jacob Javits.
Sure. So the point is that trans people come from every walk of life, from every socioeconomic background, every possible educational level, every race, every color, everything. You cannot say, oh, those trashy trannies, they're just streetwalker whores. Yeah. Now, many people, even from prominent families, have had to be sex workers, like us. I was a dominatrix. What did you do?
What did I do? I did sex work.
Yeah. I used to whip men for money.
I did dominatrix sometimes, but
I did it
not too often.
Even in my personal life.
They
don't have to pay me. It's fine.
I liked it.
But that's just me.
We used to go to Hellfire.
Yeah.
And
paddles. I love paddles.
I liked Hellfire.
No, well, but hi everyone at Paddles. Paddles is a club here in New York that's the friendly S&M club, and I used to go a lot and whip butt. And how did this degenerate into this? We were talking about a bishop. My goodness. How can I be so crude, so low, so vulgar, so common? I don't know. I just do it. So tell me, so here you are from a very nice family, and you're trans, and you've had to be a sex worker.
Yeah, I did that. I was forced into it. I ended up
Well, I
on
figure
the
if
streets.
you're going to, listen, girls in bars give it away. May as well make a little cash, right?
I was at, I'm a veteran.
Yeah.
I'm a veteran.
If some
and
nice man offers you some money, okay, that works.
I'm an Army veteran, and I didn't, coming out as trans in the 90s was
Tried in
basically...
the 70s, babe. That was no picnic.
Yeah, in the 90s, they didn't recognize us at all. They didn't even have a name like transgender back then.
Oh, we had plenty of names in the 70s.
However, they just came out with a new movie.
What's it called?
For Stonewall.
Oh, they
And,
do that every few years. The one in 1995 was excellent, too.
This one's not good because it erases people like Marsha P. Johnson
who was
and
great.
Sylvia Rivera.
Hey, it no mind, as she used to say.
Marsha P. Johnson told me she was in the Stonewall bar.
We all know that.
And she started fighting with the cops first, and then it spilled out. The fighting spilled out into the streets, and then then the Stonewall riots began.
Sure.
She started the Stonewall riots. She said she started the Stonewall riots, and other people were there to back it up.
Sylvia Rivera also,
Because they were messing with mainly people of color and blacks at that time. They were, messing with them most of all because they were the ones that weren't afraid to dress.
Sure.
In women's
Mainly
clothing.
because they had nothing to lose, because
Yeah.
this very white, very money-grubbing society had written off people of color and Latinos and everyone else.
Yeah, so there were gender nonconforming people who were also involved in the riots, and there were also, lesbian and gay people who also fought. But Marsha P. Johnson started it because she was tired of being harassed and tired of being, just tired of it. Because you get harassed in your neighborhood, where you live at, and then you get harassed when you get to the village where you're supposed to be safe and you're supposed to, find
I lived in
solace.
the village at that time. I was 13 years old when Stonewall happened. I went to school half a block away from the Stonewall at St. Joseph's School on Christopher Street, and the kids and the nuns used to harass me. It was just awful. And just walking down the street, tourists would come by. I remember once these two straight guys looked at me and said, "Hey, look, a baby faggot." In the village, in the late 60s. Duh. So good for Marsha. I knew Marsha. She was very nice. She was not a hostile or warlike person. So the fact that she could be pushed to violence shows how really fed up everyone was, and she was,
Yeah, because, there were people there who were who were white, who were afraid they would lose their job or their parents would find out, and and their name would go in the newspaper, because back then they used to put your name in the newspaper back in the 60s, 70s and stuff.
Yeah.
And if you had on a certain amount of women's attire,
3 pieces, you had to have 3 pieces of male clothing on, I believe,
in order not to get arrested. And they would take the people out of the bar and put them into the paddy wagon,
right,
in full drags.
Yep.
And
there were stores in the Greenwich Village where they sold very feminine ruffled blouses and pink turtlenecks and other things that had, manly male shops in the back. So the label was from a men's shop, It's the mod look, the Peacock Revolution. It's groovy.
Yes, because I met Marsha in the 80s before I transitioned.
I met her in the 70s. She was great, and Sylvia Rivera was a great soul.
Yeah.
And we're very lucky to have had Sylvia Rivera.
Yes, they started the Stonewall riots.
Yes.
And
well, even people like Holly Woodlawn and Candy Darling and Jackie Curtis,
yes.
Wayne County, now Jane County. I knew these people. They were very nice. Hi, Jane. I hope you're watching. And Holly, hi. But they were all very nice.
Yeah, and they found Marsha P. in the river in the village. Yep. They found her in the water.
After a gay pride parade.
After gay pride parades, and You know, I guess that case is still being investigated.
No, it's not, honey.
It's not?
Because it's Marsha P. Johnson.
Yes.
If Bloomberg got off, come on, we would live in a war zone. Marsha dies, you know,
Nothing,
face
but,
facts.
you know, but I don't think that we should erase
Do I seem
Marsha
somewhat
P.
cynical? No, I certainly don't either.
from the gay rights movement, because Marsha P. and Sylvia Rivera and others were involved in that.
They started it because they had nothing to lose. It was
Right.
the rich white gay guys who said, oh, now behave yourselves. Now stop this. Oh, the police will come. Oh my God. Oh, stop it. You know, and it was the trans women of color, the Latinas.
And it was a butch
black
lesbian
people
and a
who
black.
said, fuck this. Fuck you. Get out of my face, cop.
Yes, because we didn't really have a name back then. They called us drag
honey,
queens. They
we
called
had-
us
They called us,
transvestites.
hey, faggot. That's what
Yeah,
they called us.
or they called us the F word because they had no name for us. Now we have transgender, and all these people are coming out, and they're on magazine covers, and they're on television shows.
Yeah, before
and
we were
this
on the cover of the
glamorous
Police
life.
Gazette. It's not the same thing.
I remember we were sharing needles on the streets just to get our hormones.
Oh God, that's terrible. See, I
So-
always went to doctors. I was lucky that way. I always went to doctors. I never did black market hormones because the beautiful Candy Darling, an Andy Warhol superstar, did black market hormones, and she died of cancer at the age of 29 on March 21st, 1974, I believe. And that's really sad, you know. She could have had decades more of life. But anyway, okay, now, before I forget, our director has been Malik Parker. I want to mention that so I don't forget. One last thing, if you can say something to trans people out there that they need to hear in 30 seconds.
I would like to say, you know, that love yourself, go get educated, seek employment, and when you're discriminated against, hopefully you can find some legal help. If you can't, just
Kick
don't
the
give up hope.
motherfucker's ass.
Don't
No.
give up hope. You will, you know, and just look towards the light at the end of the tunnel. And
Which could be an oncoming train. but
you can make it in this life.
Yes, you can actually. Look, if we can, you can. And
You
we
can
have.
make it. Just
Yes.
don't give up and don't do anything to harm yourself.
My guest has
no self-harm.
No self-harm. We love you too much. My guest has been Miss Tanya Asapansa-Johnson. I'm Diana Montford. You know how much I love you. Do not hurt yourself. I'm always here for you. You know that. Even if no one else loves you, I love you. I'm here for you. I'm with you. You have nothing to be afraid of. Contact me if you need to. Anyway, I'm Diana Montford. This has been the Diana Montford Show. And that's it for us. See you next time. And I love you a lot. And take really good care of yourself because you matter to me.